Welcome back. So we ended this is a continuation of chapter 6, which has to do with planning, implementing, and evaluating. I did mention at the last presentation that most Americans believe that they could use help with organizing, and I also mentioned, if we look at the top right-hand side, about how many generations of children have heard stories about planning ahead and about the Aesop's fables, the grasshopper and the ant, where the ant was storing food for the winter while the grasshopper played in the sun. Basically that was the lesson of that particular story, was that if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And according to the textbook, your planning needs will change over your life cycle. The planning you are doing now for college will be very different from the planning that you will be doing in your occupation. If and when you have children, your planning will center around their activities in addition to your activities and those of your spouse. In many cases, the time you spend each day taking care of your children will be more than the time you spend on yourself. You will likely also be planning your leisure time as well as planning for retirement and reduced income. Family plans may also involve driving the children to school, picking up groceries, taking out the garbage, and other everyday activities. Yet, despite the amount of work and planning that families do, they do not actually sit down and evaluate the effectiveness of their planning. In other words, how effective are notes on a refrigerator door? Planning is a thinking and information gathering process involving a series of decisions leading to a need or goal fulfillment. This picture that we're looking at here is we've seen before. It's the management process model. So you can see we are in chapters 5 and 6, decide, planning, and implementing. We're going to lead to accomplishing our goals and evaluating, and then eventually discuss feedback. A plan, as I said earlier, is a detailed schema, program, strategy, or method worked out beforehand for the accomplishment of a desired end result. Surveys show Americans want and need to organize better. For example, we need to keep track of our finances, books and magazines, audio and video collections, kitchens, and our games. When it comes to your own organizational abilities, how do you think you perform? Consider even simple items that you own, such as shoes. Do you line them up or toss them in a pile? What about your socks, your suits, and your shirts? What about your casual clothing versus your formal clothing? Your clothes might be very important to you before you go out on a date, attend a wedding, or go on a job interview. Your textbook says that 12% of the American population alphabetizes their spices. Do you do that? What about books on your bookshelf? Are they in any particular order by author, or are they categorized by shelf? Or are they just placed on your shelf in a random order? Consider what you might have to do after many years of collecting books. How would you organize them in a home library? Think about the impression you have about people, including faculty and staff, with messy offices. These are the same people you will deal with and work with in jobs that you will have when you graduate. Can you work with them? In many cases, you must work with them on projects where you are not the boss. Think about time in the process. Think about time in the process of planning and organizing. How much time have you spent looking for your keys? What happens when you lend your keys to your spouse and return home? Where are the keys when you need to go to work the next day? How much time do you spend looking for your cell phone before you come to campus? There are ways to organize yourself and your household. That's why stores like the Container Store and closet stores are so popular. There are lots of commercials on television selling products to get Americans organized, even that spice rack that you frequently see advertised. This illustration here is just showing you a variety of ways in which help people organize themselves to plan. The financial planning process involves a variety of steps. First one is determine your current financial situation. What are your financial goals? Identify alternative courses of action. Evaluate those alternatives. create and implement your financial action plan, and review and revise the financial plan. So it's a circular type of situation that of a circular type of tool that assists you in being able to plan your finances. There are other types of plans. This plan at the bottom left-hand side is a business plan for success in a business. It includes training, business planning, marketing, growth and improvement. The other illustrations there are about another business plan about finding your objectives, defining customer value perceptions, propositions, executing communications, those sorts of things. Another type of a business plan. And when you write your papers for this class and other classes, you probably develop a plan. You have an introduction, a main body, and conclusion, and then within each of those major categories, you have subcategories, things like a lead sentence, key points you're going to cover, and then conclusions, summarizing your ideas and relating your ideas back to the topic or question. So those are plans that help assist you in implementing projects and important things that you need to do in your everyday life. We even know from that movie that we see with Jennifer Lopez and Matthew McConaughey, The Wedding Planner, that was a person's entire career, and her job and her income were based upon her ability to plan and do a very good job at planning something very, very important for people in their lives. The planning process and the task. A process is a system of operations that work together to produce an end result. Process implies movement or change. Planning is a process because it requires several steps, such as information gathering, sorting, and prioritizing. Based on this information, the planner must decide which plan is most likely to succeed. Decisions are not random. The decision process is an orderly, logical sequence. This chapter on planning follows decision-making because planning is a more complex task than decision-making. For example, during a process, something is happening. Change is involved and steps are being taken. Consider the example from the textbook that says decisions are not random. After living in a dorm, a college student must decide to move into an apartment. Decisions here have to do with where the apartment is located, how much money you're going to spend on rent. Are you going to have roommates or are you going to live alone? Before deciding, you usually will look at many different apartments. Think about what it's like or what it will be like if you're looking to rent a room in an apartment or a group house, not knowing who you will live with. An advertisement may say, room for rent, female or male. How do you decide? How do they decide what they want in a roommate? There will usually be some rules explained up front before you can rent the room. And unless the people in the group house are desperate for a roommate, they will be selective in deciding who is going to be their roommate. Then they may take anybody if they are desperate. In a case like this, would you even want to live there? Maybe, maybe not. This is another example of how complicated the management process can be. You have a variety of different categories here with respect to defining specific work activities, who's going to do the work, developing risk plans, project plans, etc. So this is just another example of just how complicated the planning process can be. We saw in the previous section about how decision-making can be simple or it can be more complex. The planning process is the same. Research on planning. To help us understand the role of planning, researchers have constructed models that depict the various stages of the planning process. The goal of such models is to predict future behavior. For example, how does a person normally plan? Will the plan be repeated? When people do plan, they usually try to figure out what needs to be done and how to go about doing it. Some things we do are seasonal. We do them every year. Celebrations of holidays, for example, favorite vacation spots, birthdays. At work as well, there's a publishing season for textbooks. working conferences held at the same time every year. You get better and better at each time you participate in that activity because they're cyclical. You do them every single year. College admissions, for example, is a cyclical repeated activity. So is graduation, so is the Super Bowl, so is the World Series. So as you move into your professional career, as you manage your household, and as you repeat some activities, you'll get better and better at them because you learn from the experience. Decision-making, human behavior, and chess. In chess, you have to plan ahead, way ahead, and anticipate your opponent's move. Consider the questions you would ask before you even sit down for a game of chess. You might ask, what game are you playing, and do you even know how to play chess? Who are you playing? How well does that person play chess? Decisions must be made to advance in life and achieve your goals. In this case, they usually involve one winner. So the question to ask is, do you want to play chess now? How long are you going to play? Now that we look at the game of chess, we see at the bottom left-hand side, a clock has been introduced. So timing is important. Time is running out. Is someone else involved in the game of chess? If you look at that picture at the bottom center, these are two men who are playing chess, and that there are people who are looking on. People who are looking on at a game of chess, if they suggest moves for you to make, the expression for that is called kibitzing. So in other words, they are trying to influence your decision-making process, and you are the one who is going to be ultimately responsible for the decision about where to place your pieces. Again, a complication, because there will be other people in your life who will want to kibitz in the decisions that you make. At the top right-hand side, that is a chess piece. So then you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice? A pawn in a game of chess is a piece that most players will sacrifice in order to win the game. And then, what are the consequences of losing? What are the consequences of losing in a particular activity that you want to engage in your life? What are the risks associated with that activity? The same concepts identified here can also be applied to decision-making behavior. You need to anticipate way ahead sometimes. Are you going to engage in the behavior? How good are you at it? How long are you going to engage in the activity? How much time do you have? All of these things are things you need to consider. Will you require other people's cooperation? Are you going to get them to help you? And how willing will they be? More on planning. A plan should have a purpose. It should be going somewhere. So, for example, what does the planner hope to achieve? Management theory suggests that planning is necessary if an individual or family hopes to achieve goals. Planning helps to visualize activities. Questions to consider include, will others cooperate? Is there enough money? Is there enough time? Is there enough information? The purpose of planning is to anticipate problems before they happen. While you anticipate problems, the answers to questions may lead to implementation of the plan, or more planning, or abandonment of the activity. This picture here illustrates some of the examples associated with the information we just received. The picture on the left, two donkeys, they're both hungry. They both see a stack of hay. They want to eat the hay. They are fighting against each other. And neither one of them gets to eat the hay until they have a conversation about what sort of tactic they should use and whether or not they should cooperate. And of course, that's the decision that they make. Then they get to move over to this pile on the left, eat the hay, go to the pile on the right, eat that hay. Note that some of the information you might receive during the process might be bad information or poor quality information. It's your job at this moment to think critically about the information you're receiving to determine if it's reliable or not. Someone who has never participated in a job interview would be a very poor resource for advice on the types of questions employers would ask. Picture on the right-hand side, dog and a cat cooperating so the cat can get a drink of water. More on planning and cooperating, on teamwork. These are pictures from athletic activities at Cal State Long Beach. The top left-hand side is a track and field race involving a baton. The transfer of the baton from one runner to the other runner requires a lot of practice, a lot of cooperation, a lot of good timing in order to be able to win the race. Baseball, crew, volleyball, even a concert, even an orchestra involves organization, timing, and cooperation among the people participating in that activity. In some cases, cooperation and training and preparedness can be life-saving. The picture that you're seeing on the left-hand side is Cal State Long Beach ROTC cadets at Camp Pendleton who are practicing carrying another cadet in a litter. At the right-hand side, they're practicing two-person CPR. Again, quite consequential with respect to cooperation and planning. This is the planning process. Step 1 involves awareness. Step 2 in gathering and analyzing information. Step 3, forming a plan. Step 4, implementing the plan. Step 5, evaluating the plan. More on planning. People arrive at their needs through a complex, subjective assessment based on their inherent motivations and their perceptions of the external world. For example, if a new product is to succeed, consumers must perceive that it will satisfy some need or a combination of needs. Thus, if a plan is to succeed, individuals must perceive that the plan and its implementation will be useful and will satisfy some need or combination of needs. Planning takes time, and time is in short supply. There's something called Gesham's Law of Planning, which states that people get so caught up in everyday activities and crises that they have no time to plan. This picture here at the top left-hand side illustrates a variety. These pictures here illustrate a variety of plans that fell short of the expectations of their developers. Top left-hand side, you might recognize that that's the DeLorean. John DeLorean developed quit General Motors in 1973 to start his own company. His company car was an unusual car featuring an unpainted stainless steel exterior and gull-wing doors. The car debuted in 1981, but when the company failed less than 2 years later, it had produced less than 9,000 vehicles. So that's an example of one product that had high expectations but fell short until it became a cult type of vehicle because of the movie Back to the Future in 1985, which featured the car as a time-traveling machine. Other products that you might be familiar with that fell short, this top center is a Harley-Davidson perfume. Probably did not do well because the name Harley-Davidson and perfume do not go well together. On the right-hand side, top, electronic cigarettes. Bottom right-hand side is the Edsel. Bottom left-hand side is the Betamax VCR, famous for being outperformed by VHS. Center is a visor one can wear. At the very front of the visor, one would place your cell phone and you'd be able to see movies or videos in the privacy of your own cap. Bottom right-hand side, that's just illustrating how many thousands and thousands of beverages are marketed to consumers, yet many do not go on to winning consumer acceptance. So again, about planning and how it takes time, and time is in short supply. Gresham was Queen Elizabeth I's financial advisor, and he said bad money drives out good money, meaning that if two coins have the same value but one has less metal, the cheaper one will tend to drive out the other from circulation. Applying Gresham's law of planning to management, we would then come to the conclusion that short-term concerns create priorities and deadlines that absorb managerial attention and energy at the expense of long-range concerns. Another example is silver coins that were widely circulated in Canada and in the United States. However, these countries debased their coins by switching to cheaper metals as the market value of silver rose above that of the face value of those coins. The silver coins disappeared from circulation as citizens retained them to capture the higher value or perceived future intrinsic value of the metal content over their face value, using the newer coins in daily transactions. So some people plan way ahead. Many of them are competing for the same activities or spaces. The drawback of advanced planning is the lack of spontaneity. However, the paradox of planning is that it can create stress and also relieve stress. Consider a cruise planned and then a hurricane strikes, canceling your trip. What do you do then? Situational factors and types of plans. Situational factors include environmental, context, shape, wants, needs, and goals. This can include a specific precipitating circumstance, such as a broken computer. For example, until the computer broke down, you as a student probably did not need to consider how you would go about getting it fixed. You must now either get the computer fixed or buy another one. How do you go about doing that? Families experience and continually respond to situations or circumstances that they encounter. For example, a family driving up to a restaurant and finding it closed. They must formulate a new plan. Among the situational influences to consider in making plans are physical surroundings, social surroundings, time, and tasks. Other considerations include personal traits and characteristics, introverts and extroverts, and other personality traits and expertise. This is a picture here of Myers-Briggs personality inventory. It is a test that people can take to determine their personalities. Myers-Briggs says that there are 16 different personalities characterized by these variety of letters. E would be introvert, extrovert, I would be introvert, J would be judgmental, P would be perceptive, F is feeling, T is thinking. And the reason that this is kind of important for you as an individual, some of you may have already taken this test, is that it helps you understand how other people approach problems and life situations. So even though you might approach a problem a specific way, and you think that that's the best way to approach a problem, somebody else may come to it from a very, very different perspective. And knowing your personality type and knowing the other person's personality type will be able to help you better judge and understand why that person is making the decisions that he or she is making. So it's a nice and very effective way of knowing other people's personality styles, and it will help you in the decision-making and implementation process. More definitions to help you on the exam. Expertise, the ability to perform tasks. Motivational planning behavior, thinking actively that is directed toward a particular behavior, goal, or objective. Persistence is staying power. Standards. Standards are the quantitative, which is something you measure numerically, or qualitative criteria. Qualitative is you measure it with some sort of subjective criteria that reconcile resources with demands and serve as measures of values and goals. Scheduling, specification of sets of time, bounded projected activities which are sufficient for the achievement of a desired goal set. More definition, independent activities take place over time. Multitasking, also known as dovetailing, occurs when two or more activities take place at the same time. The textbook asks, are women better multitaskers than men? Types of multitasking, you've probably done this all the time. Reading email while on the phone, skimming primitive materials while you're sorting through other mail or the phone, shopping and doing research while on the phone, etc. And then multitasking can be beneficial. It can also get out of hand through lapses in attentiveness, loss of concentration, gaps in short-term memory, communication problems, and stress. More definitions, overlapping activities. Those are combinations of activities. interdependent activities. One activity must be completed before the next activity can take place. In other words, one activity builds upon the other and is not effective in isolation. For example, you cannot hire someone before the position is posted or a salary is allocated. Attribution of plans, they are clear, flexible, adaptive, realistic, appropriate, and goal-oriented. Clear plans are understood by everyone. For example, dinner starts at 6 p.m., the concert starts at 8 p.m. Adaptive refers to the ability of a plan to respond to unanticipated events that may occur. Imagine your life without plans. So here at the top left-hand side, this is a picture of somebody's room or a dorm room. If you live on campus in a dorm, you probably talked with your roommate about how to arrange the furniture, who was going to have which desk, who was going to sleep in which bed, who was going to have what side of the closet or the dresser or the types of furniture. If you have a brother or a sister and you both share the same room, you probably engage in the same planning process. That's a very simple type of a planning process and the implementation of that plan. It can get more complicated if we look at an entire house, the top center picture, right? So they've got multi-bedrooms. Who's going to sleep in which bedroom? If you're building a house from scratch, then you, have more say in exactly the design of the structure and what it's going to look like. Again, more complicated than the previous example we saw because we're looking at more rooms, more people, more space. Let's move in a further direction. We've got planning that takes place in entire neighborhoods. Entire neighborhoods are laid out where the streets are going to be located, how big a footprint is the house going to have, how much land is going to be allocated for each property, where are the shopping centers going to be located, where are the stop signs or the traffic lights. Those are all in the next phase, the next stage in the planning process, more complicated than the previous one we just saw, which was more complicated than the first one we saw. Let's take it a little bit further. Bottom left-hand side, that's the city of Long Beach and Los Angeles County. You can see that planning is even more complicated on that scale. There are some people whose entire careers are devoted to urban planning, and that's at the bottom left-hand side is just the next stage. So you can see how the entire planning process can get more complicated depending upon the situation. Types of plans. Directional plans progress along a linear path to long-term goal fulfillment. For example, a plan to graduate from high school, graduate from college, graduate from law school to becoming an attorney is an example of a directional plan. Contingency plans are backup or secondary plans to be used in case a plan does not work. There is no single best approach to handle a situation. A method that is successful in one situation may not be successful in another situation. Examples of contingency plans, or an example of a contingency approach, would be my friend at USC who wanted to go to law school. He applied to only top-tier law schools and did not get into any one of them. He had no contingency plan, and he ended up being very disappointed. Strategic plans use a directional approach and include both a proactive search for new opportunities and a reactive solution to existing problems. For example, job hunting involves many strategies, such as resume writing, reading, prioritizing, responding to job announcements, searching in different cities, searching in different industries, expanding what you will do after not getting exactly what it is you want. For example, let's say you're a journalism major who only wants a job at a major newspaper in Los Angeles County. There aren't a whole lot of those. You may have to expand your search to other cities in California or settle with smaller publications such as magazines or websites in order for you to have a job. More definitions here. Synergy, to produce a third alternative in which is a product of group thinking. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Proactive, taking responsibility for one's own life. Reactive, responding to outside forces. Scanning, reading the world or looking for signals or clues that could have strategic implication. Actuating refers to putting plans into effect, action or motion. Adjusting is taking corrective action. Checking, you know that definition. Checking, determining if something is in compliance. Evaluating is the process of judging. Assessment, the gathering information about results. Assessment and evaluation are not the same thing. Storyboarding